2020, largely due to COVID-19. That total ends years of progress in fighting these types of infections.
Australian health officials now estimate people who've had COVID can get reinfected as soon as 28 days later, not 12 weeks like earlier in the pandemic. ABC 7 News reporter Stephanie Sierra is here with more on that research and what it means. Stephanie?
That's right, Kristen. This latest development is coming out of Australia, where health officials say due to the strength BA4 and BA5 are having on evading antibodies, they're finding we may only have 28 days of immunity after infection. Now raising questions, could we get infected with both strains?
A warning from Australian health officials. Reinfections from BA4 and BA5 COVID subvariants are happening much earlier.
Means that your period of immunologic protection following infection is probably shorter than we had previously thought. We previously thought sort of 3 to 4 months, and it's probably less.
How much less? A committee of Australian doctors say immunity with BA5 only lasts 28 days. Officials now adjusting recommendations.
Your comments about those new guidelines implemented, do you think we should do the same?
I think it's something for discussion.
UCSF's Dr. George Rutherford says it's a wake-up call.
In fact, if you're infected at the beginning of the summer, there's nothing that's saying you couldn't be infected again today with one of these newer variants.
BA5 is now the most dominant strain in the U.S., accounting for roughly 65% of new cases, according to ABC's analysis of CDC data. BA4 accounts for roughly 16%. The two combined are dominating the latest surge, making up more than 80% of new cases nationwide.
We're probably seeing just a drop in the bucket in official cases compared to what's actually going on.
As most of the Bay Area braces for another surge, Solano County is already in one.
We're experiencing it now. We've seen a bump of about 10% in our cases, 15%. So about 30 per day more over the past week than we did prior.
Hospital systems across the Bay Area are not overwhelmed, but are reporting an increase. ABC 7's data analysis found Marin, Napa, Contra Costa, Alameda, Santa Clara, and Solano counties are all reporting steady increases in new admissions from just last week. But thankfully not in ICU admissions.
They definitely seem to cause much less severe disease than earlier variants.
The question is, could that change if you're infected with both strains?
You know, you can be infected with more than one virus at the same time for any disease. That's totally possible. So it may happen, but I suspect it's a pretty rare occurrence.
Now, what is not a rare occurrence is how likely each new Omicron subvariant will lead to breakthrough infections. That's according to a recent study published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And to put it in perspective, researchers found antibody levels were 6-fold lower against the original Omicron variant, but now are 20-fold lower against both BA4 and BA5. So, Kristen, that really puts it all in perspective when you're talking about antibody response.
Right. And Steph, speaking of reinfections, which seems to be easier to get now, what do we know about the potential for symptoms to actually worsen the more you get it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and there is some preliminary data being looked into right now that suggests the more you are infected, the more chronic symptoms you could have. But it is too early to know for certain. If more comes out to prove that, though, doctors are saying it may be time a second booster shot become available for people over 50.
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you.